Woohoo! We are here, episode 39. We've made it. Welcome to the We All Serve podcast. Back here with this handsome devil, Angel Torres. Angel, what's up?
What's up, Shalom? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. It's,
How are things
end
down
of
there in
March.
Texas?
Everything's bigger.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that what they
It's good.
say? Have you
That's
had
what they-
really good steak down there since you've been down there?
I don't eat meat.
Oh, you did tell me that. You did tell me. Okay, how's the non-meat alternatives? How are they? Are they in season? Is the soy in season?
The soy is in season, the grass is in season. We're getting plenty of that. It's good. It's good.
Hey
it's
man,
good.
when is Passover? That's like coming up, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Passover started Saturday night. I actually led 2 seders out here, and it's we're into Passover. Passover's a week long, so plenty more
I saw a
time.
meme today. It was the Pillsbury Doughboy. And it said meets Passover, and the shit was flat.
That is funny.
Like, that's
good stuff.
great. Had like holes in it and everything.
Damn, that's
Totally
good.
unleavened bread. I loved it.
That's actually really good. That's good. No, it's everything's good. Everything's good. I can't believe we're already in basically April, and it's great. We're at episode 39. It's all good. I will say this, as we always do in the beginning of the show. If you are just watching on YouTube, make sure you're getting on your favorite podcast app and telling a buddy about it. Rate, review, and share, because this week we've got an awesome show in store, and next week we have another, and I believe a mutual friend of both of you and I, but also with our guest here today.
Christian?
Next week we have Jim Vasilopoulos.
Oh, Jimmy V.
Jimmy V.
He's the man. I tell you what, that guy is Buddha, and he's the smartest. He's always the smartest guy in the room, and he never comes across like the smartest guy in the room. And I was thinking about doing my doctorate, and he's like, Angel, you don't need to do a doctorate. He goes, you don't need to be brilliant doctor somebody. You just need to be about 3/4 of a second smarter than the guy you're talking to.
It's good advice. It's good advice.
He's so legit, man. I love Jim.
And he does a lot for veterans. He does a lot. Amazing guy. So I'm excited for that. So that's next week. So again, make sure you are liking, rating, reviewing, sharing, doing all of that good stuff, because episode 40 will be here before you know it. And then, like you said, episode 50, I was thinking about what you said last week. Episode 50 is going to be it's going to be fun. We're going to do the best one-liners, the best like oh my god moments, the best teeing off on somebody. It'll be good. It'll be good.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it. So I almost don't want to keep talking over here, because I'm looking at the bottom of my screen where I see our guest today is holding, and I know what an awesome guy he is, and I know how much he has to share, and so Angel, let's just bring in this.
Let's roll with it.
Let's roll with it. We've got Eric Lazar, who's a United States Marine Corps veteran, a Cransure, as well as a highly accomplished professional with 30 years of combined experience in entrepreneurship, sales, leadership, marketing, strategy, project execution. And he's lived in Chicago since 1999, hailing from New York. I won't hold that against him. At the age of 17, he enlisted in the Marine Corps, where he was accepted into the DLI in Monterrey, California, and trained as an Arabic
Defense
translator.
Language Institute,
run by the United States Army, just saying. He then went on to school in Virginia, where he became an Intel Analyst. He spent the majority of his time enlisted as an Intel Specialist capacity with both a Combat Engineer Battalion and Electronic Warfare Squadron, gaining an expertise in Southeast Asian affairs. And he was honorably, emphasize that, honorably discharged at the rank of sergeant in 1994. He has quite the background, quite the passion for helping veterans, and is quite the business guru. Without further ado, Eric, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Eric knows our boy Jimmy V.
With that kind of introduction, there's no doubt I'm going to disappoint.
Oh, come on. No, my only question is, why the heck did you join the Marine Corps? But no, okay, we'll get there. You've got brains on your head, my friend. Intel and Marine Corps, do those two things go in the same sentence?
No, they're not synonymous. So I think I was an outlier.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't know. I guess, as you guys were talking about earlier, you just need to be a modicum smarter than the guy next to you, and you look like a genius.
Oh yeah, and look, we're already getting comments over here. Look at John over here. Says Eric's
Doesn't
awesome.
surprise
Jim
me at
Fear.
all.
Oh my God!
I'm gonna jump in because this is so I'm so geeked about having Eric on. It was funny because I was like, "Hey, Eric, I think we want to have you on the show." He's like, "Yeah, man, I already talked to Shalom." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "You're my guy. God damn it, you're my guy, right?" And one of the things that sticks out when I think about Eric and one of the most just legit guys, I mean, is when I first met him. We met through, I think it was Glenn Hampton introduced us, and we're doing something at cybersecurity, something at the University Club, and then we met at the Marine Corps, like a Marine Corps scholarship event, and I think we remembered each other. And the first thing, we're talking about business and him running his company, he's like, "I've been getting my ass kicked, man. And let me tell you about this, how hard this is. I just paid myself for the first time in 3 years, man. This is not," and he doesn't mask anything. He doesn't make things look like they're roses coming out of starships and everything. He's like, "This is how it is." But at the same time, if I ever needed anything or hinted that I needed anything, Eric's like, "Yeah, what do you need, man? I'm there." And that's one thing that always sticks out in my head is if I feel lucky to have you as my friend, not because you give me free shit, but but because we go out to whether we go out for scotch with Carter Davis and Scott Hardesty, and we just sit down, and Eric's like, "Man, this is how it is," and it's always no bullshit, and I love that about you.
Well, I appreciate that. I think you spent a lot of years trying to master stuff and being the consummate salesperson. And I think over the last couple of years, particularly with the business, I learned that authenticity counts. And so, you want to put on the best face, but I think people also appreciate the honesty that not everything is great. You got to be true to who yourself is. And you sort of got tired of leading a dual life or having dual personalities.
Yeah, having that face. I mean,
yeah.
The one thing, the second thing I think about is I think I'm a pretty big shoe snob, and Eric might have me beat.
Well, that was back when I was earning a salary. Now that I'm on my
own. Before you start pipping signs on the corner. Signs of hope. Signs of hope. Send shoes.
Baby needs new shoes. That's for sure.
That's awesome. So I like to, Eric, start in the very, very beginning, and then we can work our way to where you're at right now, because you are an entrepreneur, and we want to highlight everything that you are doing in the business world, but also what you're doing right now in continuing, as we always say, continuing to serve. So, all kidding aside, you enlist in the Marine Corps. Why? Why did you enlist in the Marine Corps? And what you walked into an office at the age of 17. What did your parents have to say? What sort of environment did you grow up in?
Yeah, I grew up in New York. I'm the son of two Northeastern liberal Jewish educators. My dad was a high school principal. My mom was a high school teacher. My dad did a lot of marching in the 60s. I don't know if it was rebellious, even at a very young age, but I had a very different mindset from them. They thought, quite honestly, they thought they brought a fascist into the world. They thought I made Hitler look like a liberal. I remember
that's sweet.
The director of the social studies department had actually called my parents and wanted to have a discussion because my views were so far right wing. And so part of
Mr. Lazar, I want to talk to you about your son. Did he punch someone in the mouth? Did he get someone pregnant? No. Let me tell you about his socialist views or his right wing views.
Very, very right wing views, and that. And I had, I remember there was a social studies teacher who was very influential in my life, who was also a World War II Marine veteran, worked for the CIA. And so there were a couple of things that were sort of forming this personality and my desire to go into the military. And I always saw myself going into the CIA or the DIA or the NSA. And I really wanted to be a spook. I wanted to work in intelligence, it always fascinated me, probably from the time that I was 10. But it really began to crystallize in my early teen years. So my parents' reaction when I started going down this path, I wouldn't say repulsed, but it wasn't something that, it wasn't part of the culture or the dynamic that I had grown up with, or, that it was just, that wasn't part of it. So, but they had brought us up in a way, my sister and I, that there were 3 rules to live by: was don't drink and drive, don't lie, and don't defame the family name. So there wasn't a lot of structure, and we lived by the consequences of our actions at a very young age. And so there also wasn't a lot of direction. And as a teenager, I was very much the consummate C student. I did whatever I had to do to get by. Because of that lack of structure, there wasn't a lot of discipline. And probably around the age of 15 or 16, I realized that I didn't have the core of just, of who I was as a person and the structure and the discipline to make it in life.
That?
What's that?
You felt like you craved that?
I needed it, but I knew I would be a dismal failure in life if I didn't get it. So part of it was a fascination with the military. Part of it may have been, rebelling against my parents. Part of it was that I saw myself having a career as a spook, and the discipline. So there were a lot of different things that played into it. But I think primarily was I recognized that I did not have the discipline to make it in life. And so I craved something. And, as I evaluated the services, the Marine Corps really appealed to me because that had always had the reputation of being the toughest. And I knew if I could survive that, I might have the skill set and the wherewithal, and the core character traits to make something of my life at some point.
I don't know what the Jewish equivalent is, but did your parents have to try and have an exorcism? Did they try and do that and excise the Marine Corps spirit demons from you? Because I just have this vision of what your parents were like. Holy shit!
They were horrified. I mean, they were really horrified. It was very difficult for them, but they had brought us up in a way that we had to live by the consequences of our decisions, and so they allowed me to make that decision at 17. I mean, they had a sign for me at that point. But they allowed, it certainly wasn't their desire, wasn't their druthers. I grew up in a town that was it was an upper middle class town on Long Island. Everybody went to college. No, it was not aspirational to go into the service. You certainly didn't enlist. If you went into the service, you were going to college through an ROTC program or you were going to the academy. There were very, very few people that enlisted. And so it just wasn't part of our environment. But I don't know. I broke the mold.
So my last question was, why did you get in? My next question is, why did you get out?
What did I get out of it?
Why did you get out? Why you only spent a couple of years? What caused you to move on? Yeah,
I did 5 years active duty. Then I went to college. What I realized is being enlisted was not for me. While you have a no fraternization policy between enlisted and officer, I think the position that I was in working in intelligence, particularly as the last 3 years I worked in the air wing on a squadron, I had a lot more access to officers, and they treated me very differently than they did a lot of the other enlisted. Just simply by working intelligence. So I built a lot of good relationships there that would probably border on fraternization. And so they allowed me into their world. And I always thought I wanted to be an officer, but that gave me a lot of clarity that the enlisted ranks were not for me. I wasn't going to thrive there. So I went out and, at sort of the end of my enlistment, I was applying for an appointment at the Naval Academy. And I did not have the grades to get a direct appointment, and I couldn't get into NAPS because of my age. By the time you needed to be, I think it's under
21, 22 or something.
Yeah, and so I was going to pass that age. So going to the academy wasn't an option. So I got out, went to college. I went back in actually after I finished college. I had a couple of months left on my overall 8-year contract and started looking at officer programs there. But after 3 years of broken time, because it was inactive reserves, it was very hard for me to acclimate again, and decided to bail. It was a great experience, and I think had I sort of continued without the broken time, that would have been good. And then I had an experience. I worked in intelligence. At one point, I worked undercover, and I think it was a little disillusioning in terms of my level of expendability. And so there were probably a few things that played into it that said, I think maybe it's time to move on and go into the private sector.
Wow. One thing that always puzzles me about your story, by the way, did your parents ever come around with the whole being a Marine thing, or did they just kind of roll and say he's far gone? It's a phase. It's a phase. He'll work it out. He'll figure it out.
No, they were very proud of me.
Good.
That was never a problem. They were very proud of what I accomplished. That I was able to accomplish it. That I was able to get through. If you look at me, I'm not a big guy. Boot camp was definitely a struggle for me. Where it's a 3-month program, I wound up spending 7 months there. Got recycled twice, so.
Because you loved it just so much.
I loved it so much. I wasn't physically fit when I got there, I broke my legs. I got chicken pox, so it was a hell of a struggle. It was a 7-month ordeal for me.
Parris Island or San Diego?
I was in Parris Island.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a long place to spend 7 months.
Yeah,
you got Tijuana around the corner.
It's a hell of a months. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So during your time after you got through those 7 months, and once you actually started being able to do your job, so tell us, sort of best friend, amazing mentor, somebody that you can point to from your experience, and maybe just experiences in general. I mean, what do you take? This is what you thought I asked you earlier. What did you get out of it?
It was a transformative experience for me. I mean, it's really the core of who I am. That's very much. I don't know if I really had a soul before, as a and I say it in the way that I don't know if I didn't have religion in my life. I didn't have, whether it was Boy Scouts or religion. I wasn't, school wasn't necessarily my thing. I sort of spent most of my life just being there. And
like a belief system.
A belief system. This gave me an identity. Quite honestly,
that makes sense.
And it gave me a soul. It's very much who I am today. It's almost everything. The Marine Corps becomes almost a reference point for everything in my life. Even I got out in '94, so you're looking at almost what are we? I'm afraid to say it's 30 years almost. So I think it gave it's part of my DNA. As I look at the people that I work with, I think early on in my career, there aren't a lot of people that early on in the military, there aren't a lot of people that I would point to that were really tremendous mentors. It was really in the last part of my career when I was with the Air Wing I think of to name one would be impossible. I could probably name 7 or 8 right off the top of my head that were so influential and so instrumental in making me a leader, because I pinned on. I was an NCO, I was a corporal pretty quickly, and I didn't understand leadership. And so when I pinned it on, I became a little bit power hungry. I was terrible at communicating. I was a prick, quite honestly. And there were a few people one in particular that we were about to deploy for the Philippines. And if you've ever been to the Philippines, it's really the Wild West.
And back then, even more so. Was that pre-Pinatubo or post-Pinatubo?
Pinatubo?
Yeah, the volcano that blew up.
I don't even remember. I was there in
81, 82.
Yeah, I was there 88, 89.
Okay. Yeah, it was pre.
And before we went out there, because I was such an asshole to a lot of the troops, this gunnery sergeant took me aside and he said, listen, he's like, these guys fucking hate you. They absolutely despise you. And I'm going to warn you that if you go off base, anything can happen to you. You're probably going to get your ass kicked. So you've got a couple of weeks to sort of straighten it out and make things right. And so you're safe, because I can't guarantee your safety. And that was a hell of a wake up call. That was really a hell of a wake up.
Did you do a favor?
What's that?
He did you a
he did me a serious favor. I mean, and he was He just a tremendous guy, just a really, really gentle giant that had great relationships below to, and above. He understood people, and he was probably one of the few people that could have that conversation with me in a way that I would understand and, take it to heart, without it being a sort of that sort of a threatening, bullying kind of thing.
It wasn't directive. It was more coaching kind of.
It was coaching. It was very much a fatherly kind of approach to it. And that was a life changer. And, it happened to me one more time in the private sector. Actually, a very similar conversation happened to that. So it's, I've repeated some of my mistakes, but there was a very poignant moment. And so, what did I get out of it? I mean, it really changed my life. It changed who I am. It changed, how I relate to people, the expectations that I have for leaders, the expectations that I have for my team. It was an unbelievable experience.
So when you got out and you decided to make that transition, what was that like? What was the process of starting the journey after being in the Marine Corps? And it sounds like an amazing experience, but it's pretty much a culture shock, wasn't it?
It was a huge struggle. I got out. After college, I went back in for a couple months. Then I moved down to Washington, D.C. I had a few friends down there. Thought I would pursue a job in government. Looked at some of the consulting firms. I wasn't attractive to any of these big consulting firms. Coming out as a sergeant and having a bachelor's in political science didn't put me at the top of the recruiting heap. And that was a little disillusioning. And I struggled. I certainly sent out a hell of a lot of resumes. I actually was writing and rewriting my resume and cover letters and that kind of stuff that I got really good at. And then I guess there's an old adage is those who can do, those who can't teach. And what I decided to do is actually start a resume writing service because I got so good at writing resumes. So I did that for about 3 years. But I was, working insane amount of hours. Certainly the power of technology wasn't there at the time. And, probably putting in 18, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And not making any money because it was a very manual process of writing resumes. And so I did that for, 2.5, 3 years. And I took a job in retail to help augment, salary, bring in some money. And I wound up applying to a job for in television, and I broke into a career in television sales. But that transition was awful. It was, I think of sort of the ebbs and flows of my life, or the peaks and valleys, and I would say that was definitely one of the valleys where I was severely depressed. Feeling as if here I am. I've had this experience. I've given an awful lot, and I just needed a break. Somebody to sort of take me in and have faith that I could deliver in a career field that I wanted to go into, and I just couldn't find it. And it took me a few years. And so, finally, when I did, it was great. But those couple of years were particularly difficult.
That makes so much sense to me and resonates so much with my own personal transition story. And my story better than anybody. And me becoming an entrepreneur was largely driven by the need to not fitting someone else's mold, but needing to feed myself and take care of and do something to generate revenue and livelihood and got to do something, right? So you finish up school, and then all along comes Brandon Marty, and he creates this opportunity and says, "Hey man, maybe you want to try this." So I go in like you did with the resume writing. I was like, okay, well, I can do this pretty well. Let me go ahead and do this, and it creates this business model out of necessity to do something. You got to do something, right? And then even if it's not what I want to do, God damn it, I got to do something right now.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. You're filled with self-doubt. Am I never going to be good enough for anybody? Am I worthless? Am I, all these horrible things you start popping in your head with, which none of them are true. And if you're not around the right people, it's not really helping you heal and helping you with your transition. So I think part of the therapy is helping other people. When you talk about, doing resume writing, you're like, hey, at least I'm helping somebody, and they're gonna, I have some value because I'm able to help these people with what they're trying to do.
No, I think it's fair.
So you got so good at writing resumes, you started a resume writing service. Then you got so good at printing those resumes, so you started a printing business. Is that right?
Well, no, there was a long time in between. I think is, I broke into television, started working at a local cable station down in DC in sales, and I found something that I was good at, and I had a very good career. I had a 13-year career in television. Worked at 2 TV stations down in DC. Moved up to New York, worked in TV there, and then in '99 I was hired by a Klein TV station here in Chicago that brought me out as their national sales manager, and had a nice long run there, and then went to a big TV station group where I managed sales for a number of stations, and then I sort of had that entrepreneurial bug again. And I started a mobile technology business, which, sort of back to the resume writing, like working a ton of hours and not very successful. Sort of went through all of my cash, and then I got absorbed by another small mobile technology firm. And then together we were able to build that company, and we got bought, and the company that bought us got bought. And so there was, several years, it was 7 or 8 years. And that was very successful. And then the final purchase was a private equity firm, which left me out on the street. And then I had to figure it out again. And that's how I came to the printing company. It just, there's just so many, it's a lot harder with career choices when you're in your late 40s, so this goes back 6 years ago. Yeah. And, I had that entrepreneurial bug, and I didn't want to be reliant or dependent on a company for my livelihood. And, I needed to figure out a way to survive, and I wanted to be reliant on myself. Semper
Gumby.
Yeah. No, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. No. So, I mean, so now I just want to sort of lead into that. It's funny, Eric, you and I have known each other now for probably about a decade or so. And I remember when you and I were first connected through the business scene in Chicago. And it's interesting. I didn't know you were a veteran. And I only joined the Army a couple of years ago as a reservist. And so it's interesting. I sort of got to know some of the things that you're involved in, and some of your story, parts of the story that I didn't know, only over the past little while. So
meaning this podcast.
Well, that's true. Definitely. No, but Eric has already been responsible for sending people our way for the podcast already for a little while. But
somebody's got to do a job.
That's true. So, Eric, you're involved in a lot of stuff. And as we always say, you continue to serve. We all serve. And you certainly, you show that each and every day. So tell us about some of the things you're involved in and how you have continued to serve long past getting out of the Marine Corps.
Yeah, talk about the Signs of Hope stuff. I love that story.
It's not scripted, but make sure you talk about this. No.
I'm just curious.
I've always tried to be involved in veteran organizations. I mean, whether I've sat on some planning committees, like for the Travis Manion Foundation. I currently hold I'm on the board of the Volunteers of America for Illinois. Marine for Life program was certainly a big part of my life for a while, serving as a mentor there. I help out wherever I can. For some reason, sort of wayward people find their way to me. Maybe they're for whatever reason I attract them, and I think I think I do have a reputation for being very willing to help out. And so I don't know if it's necessarily organizations, but I make myself visible and make myself available. Owning a printing company, or prior to this in mobile, or prior to that in television, I wasn't curing cancer, or I wasn't performing brain surgery, or I wasn't saving lives. But I do have some experiences that people can draw from. that I'm always happy to share and happy to give direction and happy to give advice. So, you know, it's in very, very simple ways. There's nothing about it that, you know, I'm changing the world with, but, you know, in a small little microcosm or one little person, you know, I try to make things better. But, you know, I would say, you know, certainly over, you know, the last year, you know, with COVID is I've probably extricated myself a little bit from that. I've not been as involved. I've not been as extroverted. Just, you know, part of it has just been survival, to get the business through this and sort of focus and, you know, maybe being a little bit selfish in terms of, you know, my own well-being. So it's been a struggle, and it's a challenge for me because I don't, you know, part of helping other people sort of, it fulfilled me. And so there's a little bit of emptiness with that also. So, you know, I certainly wouldn't want you to blow out of proportion what I'm doing or what I'm achieving. It's, you know, I think I was much more involved at a certain point with certain things, and sort of just reorienting myself now that I can be, as we begin to emerge from this, that I'll you know, be able to sort of go back to some of those roles and, you know, and help serve people. But, you know, I think a lot of it is, you know, what we can do through the business is with veteran organizations, non-for-profits, is to donate our services. That right now that's been the easiest, which is, you know, not something that I'm proud to say that it's easy and that's why we do it. But it's really all that we, you know, sort of all that I've been able to manage to do. And so we try to do that. And so there are lots of organizations that come our way, veteran oriented, that we're very happy to donate and try to support in whatever way we can. But you were asking about the Hope and Thanks, Angel.
Signs of Hope.
The Signs of Hope. It was our Signs of Hope and Thanks campaign. Okay. That started off, it was very organic. It was really cool. The way it took root is I have a business partner, Rebecca. You know, at the end of last February 2020 is, you know, 50% of our business is really reliant on the trade show, the convention business. That all evaporated at the end of February, and March, it just, you know, it did all but disappear. We had nothing going on. I mean, literally the printers came to a halt. We couldn't find anything to do. And my business partner, Rebecca, you know, told the production guys, you know, make me a couple of signs that say hope. And she and her two little girls went to a couple of locations. They planted these signs, took a couple of pictures, and she put them on Facebook. And all of a sudden, she had like 200 likes in no time at all.
Boom.
Yeah, it just exploded. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is something interesting. And so we took that and, like, you know, let's do this on a grander scale. And we told the guys to make a couple of hundred hope signs and a couple of hundred thanks signs, or, you know, hope and thanks combined. And I took them and I just planted them randomly throughout Chicago. The hope signs were sort of all over the place. And the thanks signs, we put them in front of, went to Rush, we went to Northwestern Memorial, we went to the fire stations, police stations, and put them out there. And it caught fire on social media. And, you know, we had a little hashtag, very, very, you know, subtle hashtag on it. A couple of people picked up on it, and then the news picked up on it. The media picked up on it and started asking us about this, because nobody was paying us for this. We just thought it would be something that would be really cool to raise spirits in Chicago as things looked so abysmal. And then we got calls from from most of the major media outlets here in Chicago, asking about this campaign, asking what this was all about. And we didn't have a plan for it. We had no idea all it is. Like, okay, you know, let's put it out there and we'll make a couple of people smile as they're going for a walk with a dog. They cross a hope sign, and, you know, so be it. And, you know, and a way of expressing our thanks to first responders. And, you know, when we started getting calls, like, well, what the hell do we do with this? And we also, at the same time, social media, people were asking, can I buy one? And we had a real moral or ethical issue with selling these signs for something that was going to be purely beneficial to us. as much as we needed the money because our business had for all intents and purposes had shut down.
It was rooted in do good.
It was rooted in do good.
How do I feel about making money off of do good?
It wasn't right. It didn't. It didn't. There was something just intrinsically wrong with that.
Yeah.
So within a matter of hours, like TV stations want to interview us. What the hell are we going to say? All right, let's figure out a way that we're going to donate a portion of the proceeds to a non-for-profit, and we selected the Red Cross because it just seemed the broadest swath and something that everybody recognized. We got an e-commerce site up in the matter of a day, and then we just said, we're doing these signs, we're selling these signs, and 25% of the proceeds are going to the American Red Cross, and that's how that's how it came to be. And we were interviewed 4 times on television, once with WGN radio. It was picked up on a national basis by Sinclair Broadcasting. So it was cool. It was great. And we just reading some of the comments in social media and how it impacted people, that just seeing a little hope sign, and and then it sort of expanded and just sort of spread kindness and a little bit more whimsical. But it was great. It was just we put smiles on people's faces. Maybe we did give them a sense of hope. Again, it wasn't anything that was momentous, but it gave us a sense of purpose at a very dark time.
That's the one thing about you, Eric. Whenever you interact, and you're kind of hard on yourself, like we're not doing a lot. But the reality is the things that you do, as subtle as organic or as off, happen chances they might be, are impactful. I mean, you don't know what someone's doing walking across the street and seeing your sign of hope, and it changes their whole day, their whole outlook. I mean, it's a big deal, and that's something you kind of, that's part of your brand and part of something that we all know and love about you.
I appreciate that.
So I don't have anything else.
Likewise. No, I'd say that you are truly the example of why we do what we do, and you've got an inspirational story, and you continue to serve. So we're grateful to know you, and grateful for all that you do. So, Eric, if people want to find you, I know you're all over on LinkedIn. Any other methods?
Facebook, LinkedIn. Those are probably the 2 places that I'm hanging out the most. Real easy to find me. And then, you can go to our website, which is speedprochicagoloop.com, or just hit me up on email, which is eric.lazar, Lazar, @speedpro.com. And, I'm always happy to answer.
All right. Well, thank you. And Angel, you wanna give a shout out to next week's guest one more time?
Yeah, Jim. We're gonna have Jimmy V, Jim Vasilopoulos, on the show, and I'm excited. He's one of Forbes 40 coaches, executive coaches. He's always published in Forbes, and he's although he's never worn the uniform or the nation's cloth, I think you would be hard pressed to find anyone that has given and done so much for everyone that he just encounters in his ecosystem. He's a very passionate veteran advocate, and he walks the talk like no one I've ever met.
I'm going to give him a quick endorsement also, unsolicited, is he actually changed our business for us.
You told me about that. You did tell me about that.
He came in and did some consulting for us maybe 4 years ago, and it really it changed the lens on how we looked at the business and approached it, and we saw a dramatic change as a result of the few hours that he spent with us. And he is really one of the most generous, gracious people that I've ever had the pleasure to work with. He's just he's a fabulous human being. So I think it's going to be a great call, and I can't say enough positive things about him. My business partner has a serious crush on him.
I have a crush on Jim. Hell.
Man,
Great,
oh man,
Eric.
it's gonna be a good conversation. Looking forward to it. Make sure you are rating, reviewing, sharing, and subscribing to the We All Serve podcast, episode 40. Next week we'll be back, so you don't want to miss it. Eric Lazar, thank you so much for all that you continue to do, and Angel, I will see you on the next episode of We All Serve.